Is WOCA, Ocala, Gainesville, The Villages, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.
Minutes after 10 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. Every once in a while, we will have a guest, and I will find myself quoting the guest or just relaying the same information I learned from the guest. Greg Kozera is one of them. He's been with us before. He is the guy who wrote the book, Just the Fracks, ma'am. Remember that book, Robin?
Oh, yeah.
Great book. Some of the stuff he told us during that interview, and I think there was maybe another one that we had with Greg. I know that this comes up a lot. There are people who don't want us to drill for energy. I don't want to say oil because it's not oil, right? It's whatever they can make energy out of that comes out of the ground.
Exactly.
Okay, that probably is part I need to learn some more. Greg is the director of marketing for Shell Crescent USA. He's a professional engineer and environmentalist with more than 35 years of experience in the natural gas and oil industry, the past president of the Virginia Oil and Gas Association and president of the Learned Leadership, and he's the author of the book, Just the Fracks, ma'am. Also, the book called Learned Leadership. Leaders are not born, they're made. That must be the other interview we had with him. So he's asking this question: if the United States bans drilling, will Russia control natural gas? My guess is yes. We'll find out if Greg agrees with my answer. Good morning, Greg. How are you?
Hey, good to talk to you guys again.
Yeah, where are you? I can't remember.
I'm in Charleston, West Virginia, but I got some exciting news though, because our grandson actually lives in the Gainesville area.
Is that right?
And he graduated. Yeah, it's really cool. He graduated from high school in June, and this week he was sworn in by the U.S. Marines. So he'll be heading to Paris Island. So it's a big step in his life, and he'll do well. He's got his grandfather lives down there, is a Marine. My father was a Marine in World War II, so he's got, and his dad's a Navy chief of 26 years, so he's got, I guess it's in his blood. So, but he'll do well with that.
Congratulations! You just gave me chills.
Yeah, that is really something to be proud of. Yeah, and I think one of the things that we do to our young people who serve in the military is we ask them to defend the very things that we hold near and dear, which one of them is our way of life. And I know that the whole fracking thing could put our way of life in our own hands rather than depending on foreign oil.
It really does, and that's why I'm so darn passionate about this, folks, because we have right now, just to give you your listeners an example, if you look at where I live, Ohio, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, that little section of the country is producing 30% now of the United States gas supply, and it was 3% just in 2010. But if we made a country out of West Virginia, Ohio, Pennsylvania, it would be the third largest natural gas producing nation on the planet.
Is that right?
It produces that much gas, and it's the only places that beat it are the rest of the United States without. We call the Shell Crescent, Ohio, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, and Russia is number 2. So can you imagine if something happened, if we did something really stupid and restricted our oil and gas industry's ability to produce? Who takes that top spot now?
The book, Just the Fracks, ma'am, that was published in 2012?
Yes, sir.
Remember? Okay, so a long time has passed, and so I'm wondering, in the interim, since that book came out, and now, I mean, remember one of the concerns that a lot of people had that you addressed back then was compromising the surface ground. Like, would it cause sinkholes, or would it damage the aquifer here in Central Florida? Those kind of things. So, if you could readdress them, has anything changed with that? Have we become better at making sure that doesn't? And some people were even saying that in the Oklahoma area, I think, fracking was causing earthquakes.
Right, and there was some concern about that. And matter of fact, I know one of the gentlemen did the study on that in Oklahoma, and what they realized, that fracking wasn't causing the earthquakes at all. Now there was some concern that in Oklahoma they actually disposed of their water deep underground, and that could have an issue. But it wasn't hydraulic fracturing at all. and places like where I live, the water's a precious resource, so it reduce, reuse, recycle. But, there was a study that just came out this year, guys, and it was Orion Strategies, and what's really interesting, when you look at hydraulic fracturing, the people in this region, Ohio, the Shellcrest in Ohio, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, the support for hydraulic fracturing was 86% in that survey. And, there was probably much less than 10% that were actually negative. And what that tells me is people that are in the areas where it actually happens, and literally where I live, I can see 3 wells, and I watched them get fracked from my front door. My kids were raised here; they're fine. Cannon's going into the Marines. His dad's carrying the same genes.
Yeah.
Right.
So we know, if you live there, we know that we've done this process well over 2 million times, and they're still looking. I call them the antis. They're still looking for that one well, that one smoking gun. And if you can't find it after 2 million times, come on.
Yeah.
So here's what I see is the places, and hopefully my book has helped to reach into those places where, I have more problem. When I was with the Virginia Oil and Gas Association president, there was a people in Eastern Virginia that had never seen a frack job, didn't even know what it was, that were against fracking. The ones in Western Virginia where it actually happened every day, and they watched it, and they saw the crews, and they knew what the process was, and they knew their water wasn't hurt by it, or their air was fine. They were okay. So I think what happens so many times, it's fear and it's misunderstanding. And really, but this is important for your listeners to understand, because this is a big deal. Remember a few months ago, President Trump visited Germany, and I actually he was talking about the Germans buying gas from Putin and Gazprom. Mm-hmm. And I did some research after that for a story. I do a lot of writing. I'm in several newspapers on a weekly basis. And what I learned, and I didn't even realize it, somehow I'd missed it, but, Europe banned fracking. They bought into, they drank the Kool-Aid and decided that this was dangerous and we're not going to do it. So Europe gets their gas from the North Sea, which is drastic, it's depleted almost, and Russia has been selling them gas over land for years. Well, after they banned fracking in Europe, in 2011, Putin, in his infinite wisdom, built a pipeline from St. Petersburg in Russia through the Baltic. He just laid it in the Baltic Sea and to a town in Germany, and started selling the Germans more gas. Well, what President Trump was so upset about is they're in the process of laying a second line from St. Petersburg to Germany, a 4-foot diameter pipeline to send more gas to Germany. So here's what I get where the president's coming from. He said, wait a minute now, you're buying gas from our competitor, and you're making them stronger because they don't sell gas at our prices. They sell at their prices, which are a whole heck of a lot higher. So he's actually strengthening Germany and the rest of Europe by buying all this Russian gas. Let's face it, Putin's not doing it for free. He's making a profit.
Right, yeah.
So we're paying to defend them against Putin, and they're buying gas so he can have more money to make more weapons. Now, does that make sense?
That has no sense at all.
And as a grandfather whose son is going into the Marines, I'm thinking, wait a minute now.
That's right.
My grandson could be defending Germany at some point against Russia with weapons that Germany helped them to buy.
Right. Oh my gosh, yeah, that's so true. Oh my gosh, how is it possible that we don't see that simpleness of that? I mean, how is it possible that we? Well, of course, it's not us; it's them. They've got to make the decision.
Yeah, right. And that's where I think, and I give the president a lot of credit for stepping up to the plate and saying, "Look, you guys need to think about this stuff." And here's the good news is we are in a position to actually send Germany natural gas right now. Well, so that's something that we didn't have that option,
This president,
even in 2011.
Like him or not, this president has a clear understanding of the relationship between money and power. He clearly understands that.
And that's what I think that, like him or hate him, I think one thing I have to really respect about him, he is a business person.
Right.
And it's kind of like, I'm a small business person, and I can tell you one thing about our business. If someone owes us money, I'm probably kind of, I don't focus on that. My wife does. And I'll guarantee you, if somebody owes us money, she's on it, and she gets the check. I mean, I can send an email, nothing happens, but when my wife sends one, I don't know what she says, how she does it, but we get paid. And I'm thinking Trump goes over there and he says to
that's what he does,
folks, you don't need to pay us. and that's business. I mean, how many presidents went before him and kind of let things slide? And Trump says, wait a minute, this is stupid. It cost us money to do this. You all need to pay us. And when he asks for his money, they start sending us checks, just like Linda. If I don't ask for the money, we're not going to get it.
Well,
she's really good at that.
So since Putin has this pipeline into Germany to extract the gas from Germany, why doesn't the German government do this itself?
He's sending gas to Germany. He's sending gas. See, Russia is the number 2 natural gas producer in the world. They got all kinds of gas. What Russia's doing is, Robin, is they're sending that gas to Germany on those pipes.
Oh, okay. They're not extracting it from and then reselling it to them. They're sending it via the pipeline.
Russia produces a ton of natural gas.
Oh, okay.
And
now I
they've got a great customer. And it's not just Germany. I mean, it's going to France and it's going to some of the other European people like Poland. It's going to other European countries. But Germany's the big purchaser. They signed a multi-year contract. And what Russia does, which is brilliant, like him or hate him, but the Gazprom, their gas company, signs long-term contracts, like 20 years, but they base it on the price of oil. So what happens, our natural gas here is about, I guess consumers pay about $4 a thousand. Well, Putin bases his on oil, so I think the going rate over there is $11 or $12 a thousand. And now think about this: if it gets cold in Moscow, or if Putin wants to exert a little political pressure, do you think possibly that he could conceivably shut the valve?
Yeah. I think so.
Like in January when it's a little cold, when we need a little more gas.
Sure.
How will the tariffs that Trump is placing on exports being affected?
I'm still because of what I do. I'm an economic development consultant, and so I'm sensitive to all that because we're dealing with most of the people that we're looking at to come here and set up shop. A lot of them are in Asia and Europe. And I think I'm going to say the jury's still out on a lot of it. I think a lot of people are waiting to see how some of this stuff shakes out, because I know in some cases it's a bargaining chip, a negotiating tool. So I think I'm still waiting to see how that actually works. I mean, it could be a negative, and in some cases for us, it actually could be a positive to bring business here. So I guess I'm going to wait and see how that
For those who didn't hear what I said in the beginning when I was introducing Greg, he is not only with Shale Crescent, but he's also an environmentalist. So he kind of understands what needs to happen to keep the earth clean and safe from pollutants and oil spills and all that. And so because of that part of what you do, I want to first say, I think that a true environmentalist really does us all a great service, because they're really trying to look out for us all to make sure we're good stewards of the planet. And I am all for that. But I think sometimes we hear contradicting messages. We hear a message from an environmentalist who says we want to keep the earth safe, but we want to use oil from another country, which is, if you're going to drill it, you're going to drill it. I mean, it's going to come one way or the other.
Yeah.
And I never...
I say this, better to do it here under our environmental law.
That's what I wanted you to comment on, yes.
Yeah, it really is. And it was neat. I was talking to, I was on, I don't know how it worked out, but I was on a student radio station for the University of Colorado at Boulder. So they tend to be more environmentally focused. And this was actually a mountain climbing show. so they wanted to know about fracking and just our energy in general. And, one of the things I said is, folks, I said, mountain climbing, your ropes aren't made out of rope. They're nylon. And even those whatever they call them, the pegs, the stuff they drive into the mountain, because metal rust. They have these, so they're made out of composite or plastics or something like that. I said, all those things are made from petrochemicals that come from oil and gas wells that have all been fracked. And Putin fracks and OPEC fracks, and it's part of the process. You don't get oil and gas without fracking, no matter where you put it, no matter where it is in the world. Mm-hmm. And so I was talking about even to make those things requires factories, manufacturing, petrochemical plants. And I said, better to have that here under our environmental law than in China or in India or some of the other places. And I was shocked because they got it. I mean, he got it right then. He said, wow, we really don't like some of this stuff, but we got to have it. If we're going to climb a mountain or if I'm going to get to that mountain, I got to have a car.
That's it. Yeah.
So he said, listen to what he just said, folks. Better to have it here because at least we control the process. And to be honest with you, I mean, you know, I travel around, but I grew up in Pittsburgh. Now, can you imagine? You've heard about it, but everything they told you about Pittsburgh in the 50s and 60s was true. It was nasty. Mm-hmm. That's why I'm an environmentalist.
Sure.
I mean, I swam in the creeks in Pittsburgh. We had 6 boys in our family, so my dad was a carpenter, so he couldn't. It was not a lot of money. We couldn't afford a pool pass for the family. So my brothers and I and our friends swam in a place called Plum Creek, and it ran orange. And I remember one day we were in there, and our hands started turning blue from some water, and we figured we'd better get up. And I'm thinking, I can't believe I swam in that water because that was all there was. That was, and our air was terrible. It was nasty.
How's it now?
Today, it's that same creek. We've had our family reunion out there. It runs clear. You can see the bottom. There's fish in there.
Oh, that's awesome.
Swim on that thing. The air is incredible, and we have the cleanest air that I've had in my entire lifetime. In this, whether it's in Charleston, where the petrochemical industry was here and is here.
Yeah.
Pittsburgh, you name it. We've done so much for the planet, and that's why we won't stand for this garbage anymore. We're not going to let our planet get destroyed, and it's time that we can use our natural gas to help places like India, where we're sending natural gas and we're cleaning their air up. So I think someone that's anti-pipeline, anti-frack doesn't understand it. We're saving people's lives over there. Those kids, half the kids in New Delhi have COPD. That was an NPR story about 2.5 years ago, and that moved me. I mean, I got kids, I got grandkids. I'm thinking that's not right. Those kids shouldn't have to breathe that kind of air. And who stepped up to the plate? No, the churches didn't know what to do. Nobody knew what to do. The governments didn't do anything. The natural gas, and my pastor is from India, and I said, Father, you go to New Delhi once a year. I said, what's it like? And he said, oh, great. He said, the air's terrible. He stopped. He has no idea what I do. He said, but you know something? In the last year, the air is getting cleaner. I said, what's going on? He says, well, they're using more natural gas. So I'm thinking, how can you be anti-pipeline, anti-frack when you know now? I know it from a guy that's been there and sees the difference.
Right.
That it's cleaning it up. And let's face it, if it's nasty in there, that air doesn't just stay in New Delhi. It floats over our direction.
There you go. And that's why, right there, why whenever you come on, I just absorb everything you say, and then it trickles out of me every time I have a conversation about this topic. All right, we have the phones lighting up. Are you okay with taking calls?
Absolutely.
All right, somebody's been waiting for a while here. Good morning. Thank you for waiting. You're on the air with Greg Kozera.
Good morning, Greg. I can remember as a kid in the late 40s that my father had an office in Pittsburgh. They used to keep extra suits. The offices had spare bathrooms so that you could clean up around 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. He had to carry extra socks in his pockets because the coal dust or whatever the pollution was actually went through the socks and I remember seeing his ankles and everything filthy.
Wow.
Black.
Wow.
But the other thing is we have a president who wants to, negotiate with each country, not the European Union. And I believe that he made some kind of a business deal with Poland where they're going to be buying our natural gas. That's the last I heard. Now, whether this actually came about, I'm not for sure. But I was wondering if you heard that, and I'll hang up and listen.
All right, thank you. Greg?
Yes, they are. He's right. They actually started our first natural gas got to Poland last summer, and we continue to sell them natural gas. So it comes out of the Gulf Coast, and it goes over there by boat. But yeah, that's exactly what they made that deal, and we've been selling gas to the Poles. And what's neat is it gave the Polish people a bargaining chip. Because can you imagine if Putin knows he's the only source? can you imagine what kind of pricing? Or it happens anywhere. If you're the only one,
right.
Power, just the fact that now we can ship them gas, and we are shipping them gas.
Right.
It changed their pricing. It's helped those people because now their gas bills are lower.
Talk, if you could, just a little bit about us here in Florida, the Gulf and the Atlantic, as far as drilling off the coasts.
Well, two things are going on, and I know I literally know people that are out there and are involved with that process, and they had the issue with that, and that was there were some bad decisions made on that one well. But well, I'll tell you what, the hoops they've got to jump through offshore is phenomenal. I mean, it's amazing what those folks have to do. Now, what's going on though right now, because of the Shale Crescent USA and that cheap, abundant natural gas we've got, and our other shales like on the Permian, the dependence on the Gulf is minimizing. I mean, we're not going to see as much drilling out there anymore because they can't compete with the onshore resources. You can imagine, we can get it a lot cheaper from West Texas and from the Shale Crescent up in Ohio and West Virginia than we can off the Gulf Coast. And what was interesting when Harvey hit last summer, when we had Katrina, our gas price, I mean, literally, folks, at the bottom of my hill, it went up 25 cents overnight. When Harvey hit, we're getting our natural gas, the natural gas here has been made into gasoline. That same weekend, my price went down 15 cents because we're not using Gulf Coast, we're not using Middle East facility. We're getting our fuel for our cars right here in Ohio, West Virginia, Pennsylvania. So the Gulf Coast's importance is lessened because we've got these resources on shore, and they're cheaper, they're easier to extract, and so I don't see that being a safety factor is in. I mean, they've got the protections in there, but there's going to be less drilling simply because of economics.
Are some states easier to withdraw gas from than other states if you use fracking?
It is too, and of course fracking is, you got to drill a well, and what we're doing now, Robin, we're drilling these wells horizontal, and up here they're going down about 8,000 to 10,000 feet, and they're turning that drill bit, and they can actually drill 3 miles. You can go out and look outside your radio station. Can you imagine looking down that road 3 miles? Knowing that they can do that same thing underground, turn that drill bit and go out there 3 miles.
Wow.
So what you can do is, you can extract a lot of gas with a very minimum, and that's why I'm so excited about it, with a very minimum environmental footprint. And, like I said, you can frack that well. That same well is going to be fracked over 100 times underground from that one site. So again, minimizes any risk of environmental damage. And we know that, when you're fracking at 8 or 10,000 feet, you can't damage groundwater. I mean, I can go through the engineering as to why that can't happen, but you can't.
I have to take your word for it. Yeah. Again, that's why I like
I'd be the same way. These wells are here. I mean, they're in my backyard. The only difference is, thank God they're here, guys, because to replace the well that I can see from my front porch, you need 1,100 acres of solar panels to replace that one well, and it's on maybe an acre site full of grass, and that's where the deer eat if they're not eating my tomato plant. So that's where my dogs play. Our golden retriever lived to be 14 years old. Her and her buddy Candy would roll in that grass. So, no, is there a problem with those things? No. I mean, matter of fact, they just kind of quiet. These things, after they're drilled and fracked, they just quietly sit there. And that well, it was drilled back in the 50s originally. So, can you imagine? You got a well it's older than I am probably.
Wow.
That's sitting there just doing its thing, and with grass around it where the deer eat and the dogs play, and to replace it, you got to have 1,100 acres of solar panels, and those solar panels, we know one thing for certain: they don't work in the dark.
That's a good line. Greg, I always love having you on. For everybody who does a radio talk show, invite Greg Kozera. I'm telling you, he will educate you and your audience. The two books are Learned Leadership, which we didn't even touch on that topic today, and then the other book, Just the Fracks Man. We talked on it a little bit when we talked about is it your grandson or your son? Grandson going into the Marines. Well, congratulations again on that.
We're going to be down there. We got to take him back home. We're going down to Florida. We want to visit with him before he goes off there. So I'll be in your area on Monday. We're going to actually take him home.
Well, enjoy Florida while you're here.
Oh, we will. It's cold and rainy up here.
Greg, we got to run. Thank you so much for being on the air with us today. Good stuff.
Take care, guys.
We'll be right back.
Broadcasting from the Paddock Mall Studios, this is WOCA, Ocala.
Fox News Radio, I'm Chris Foster. The Senate Judiciary Committee votes this morning on whether to recommend Brett Kavanaugh for the Supreme Court. Texas Republican John Cornyn tells Fox,
I'm optimistic. We've been in constant communication with all of my colleagues. Some of them have requested additional information, which we have gotten for them. And I'm optimistic we'll confirm the judge.
Some Democrats in the American Bar Association are calling for an FBI investigation into